Welcome to Sketchup. I'm Sherry Reitzel. Let's get started. Well, hello everyone and welcome back. This is SketchUp class and this is lesson 2. And today we're going to be looking at how to draw our own custom items within SketchUp and to edit those items to create whatever it is that's in our imagination. I'm going to get you to begin by opening a brand new SketchUp file as I have in front of me. And the next thing we'll do once that is open is we're going to actually re-add the large tool set that you can see on the left hand side of the screen. And to do that, that is if it's not already there from last week, we're going to go to the View menu at the top and then click on Toolbars and then ensure that you select or check off the box that says Large Tool Set. That will give us some of the other shortcuts that we'll need for this lesson. Now just to review some of the items from last week, let's make sure that we remember how to orbit, how to pan, how to zoom, right click and zoom window, use our wheel to zoom out, familiarize yourself again with the paint bucket location, and just generally get a feeling of where all of the shortcuts are on your screen. Now I'm going to get you to navigate yourself to a place where you're about in this position, and we're going to work with some of the drawing commands right now. You should see them in a couple of locations. The first location is in the large tool set on your left hand side. You should see a pencil, which is the line command, a freehand line, which we're not going to work on today, but know that it's there, the rectangle shortcut, a rotated rectangle, some circles, polygons, and arcs. You'll also see a spot on the top of your screen toward the left-hand side near your select tool, where we also have a drop-down menu for the various drawing commands. And of course, if you ever get in a situation where you can't find the shortcut, you can go up to the draw menu and you'll see that as another location. So we're going to start today with the line command. So look for that pencil shortcut or go to the top and go to the line area. We're going to click on the pencil, and what's critical to know about the line command is that we will see the measurement or the length of the line as we draw, and that it's important that we go in the direction of the various X, Y, Z axis colored areas here to ensure that our line is going on the plane we wish for it to be drawn on. So click on the pencil tool with me. We're going to click somewhere to begin near our lovely model here. Now when you do click on that floor space or that ground area, you are going to want to click and release your select finger immediately. Okay, you're going to want to click and release and then hover. I'll probably be saying that quite a bit. Click, release, hover, and that enables us to hover in the direction we wish to go. And as you do that, I want you to move your eyes down to this measurements area where it says length. As I move my mouse, it's giving me the length. So I could either click a length or I could type a length right now. So as I type a length, you can do that right in the air. You don't need to move your mouse at all, but I'm going to type 12 feet on my keyboard and enter. When the line turns black, it means that it's successfully been drawn. Now I want to stay on task here, and you'll notice as I feel like this looks right with the black line, but I remember that I want to make sure I'm going in the correct direction with the red axis, and I'm going to hover on the red here, no clicking, just hovering. I'm going to type 12 feet again. Then I'm going to come back on green, and I'll type 12 feet again, and back to my starting point and click. So what we have here is, using the line command, we have created a surface, which is super cool. We're going to try that one more time as an exercise with some different distances and so forth. We'll use the line command. We're going to click. We're going to hover. We'll type 15 feet. We'll go on red, type 10 feet. Now we're going to go on the green axis here, but this time we're not going to do feet. We're going to do inches. So I'm going to get you to type 60, which is the same as 5 feet, obviously. But just a note that you'll want to write down right now is you don't need to type the inches symbol in SketchUp. You just type 60, which assumes inches. That's just a small time saver. We'll go back in this direction and we'll type 20 feet. Now, here's where we're going to learn something a little new. It's called inferring. I'm orbiting as I go. Notice as I was in the middle of the drawing command, I'm doing a little orbiting and I'm doing a little panning right in the middle. And when I'm done doing that, I right click and hit exit and I'm still in the drawing command. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hover on green here and we're going to still continue to hover, but we're going to come over and hover over our starting point and hover back. And what that does, that inferring movement, is it lines up our original point to where it is we want to go that's perpendicular to that. Click and click, and we have another area. I'm going to do inferring one more time with you so you get some practice with that. I choose the pencil. We're going to this time hover on green and simply click, hover on red and to accept the distance, click, and as you hover on green again, I'll get you to come over infer over the original point, hover back, click, and click. Next, I would like to take a look at the rectangle command. Now, using the rectangle is one of the easier tools or drawing commands within SketchUp, and it's a better way to draw a square or a floor or something architectural than it would be to use the line. It's just a little bit quicker. What's important to note about the rectangle command is that we have two numbers that we need to add. If you look down in our dimension area here, we need to be adding the distance that it will travel on the red axis and the distance that it will be traveling on the green axis. And of course, we said that as red is X, it will be what comes first. So a note that you can write down right now is you're going to write down the red distance and then a comma and then the Y distance for how large we want our rectangular square to be. Red distance, comma, Y. Like in AutoCAD, it's X, comma, Y, or green. So I'm going to have you click on that rectangle shortcut. You could find it under the draw menu as well. We'll zoom out just a little bit here. We're going to click on rectangle. We'll find an open space on our floor area. We're going to click on the ground and hover, and I'm going to get you to type 12 feet, comma, no spaces, 12 feet, enter. Let's do that one more time. Click, hover, 12 feet, comma, 12 feet, enter. Excellent. I'm going to get you to try 3 other sizes here. One will be 5 feet by 5 feet, 10 feet by 10 feet, and then 15 feet by 15 feet, and I will do the same. Let's try some of our other drawing commands now. Next, we'll go to the circle command. This requires you to click a starting location, which will be the center point of your circle, and to type a distance that will be the radius distance, as you can see here. Remember, radius is half of the diameter, so if a table is 6 feet across, the radius will be a 3-foot distance in order to create that 6-foot table. So we're going to go ahead and click on circle. Click somewhere on that ground area, and let's do exactly that. Let's type 3 feet, enter. Let's practice a few of those. Let's go 2, 4, 6, and 8 with the foot symbol. Circles are fairly straightforward. Next, what we'll do is we will take a look at the arc command, and we'll just try one arc right now, which will be a 2-point arc with a radius or a bulge distance, which will be the radius of that circle. But we're going to do that by attaching that arc to something so it can complete a surface. Find one of your rectangles or squares that you can use to begin your arc at one corner, end it at a different corner, and then we'll bulge it out coming in one direction, I think maybe on the red or green axis there. And what you'll be looking for here is we're going to click on arc. We're going to make sure that the arc style that we're using, if we go to the top of our screen, is the 2-point arc. So that will require us to click on the starting location or endpoint, the second location or the other endpoint, and you're going to want to have that bulge kind of appear, and you'll see how that it also remains on axis. You'll also notice that that radius distance is appearing for you in your measurements location. I'm just going to let it sort of hover and click when it's a desired distance. And there we go. Let's try that another time. What you'll find when you start to divide the surfaces in SketchUp is you're able to create other new surfaces that can be subdivided further and further to help you create a whole bunch of custom shapes. So as you can see here, I've turned this one rectangle into 4 squares with an arc on it, and each one of these can be push-pulled or edited on their own. Likewise, you can use your eraser tool, which is different than delete, by the way, because it helps you get rid of just the lines. But I can use my eraser tool at the top left-hand side of my screen to remove a line that has been subdividing a surface to create one surface. So this, for example, started as a rectangle, and I added onto it with an arc, and then I deleted or erased that line that divided it so that I can have one surface to work with rather than several. That is completely useful and will continue to be useful as we work towards creating custom shapes. That will bring me to my next step. All right, what we're going to do now is to work with the push-pull command together. You'll see a shortcut right beside the circle at the top of your screen, and this is how we turn our 2D shapes into 3D forms. Now I can push-pull things just visually and have it kind of increase the volume or the height in that way, or I can push-pull and type distances if I need a specified value there. So let's all click on the push-pull button, and I'm going to let you choose any shape of your choice here. To choose push-pull, I'm going to get you to kind of come down over here and find a surface. Click on that surface, hover in the up direction, and click when you find a desirable location for that object. We have a 3D shape, 3D form. Let's do that with another shape. Get out of that. On the surface. I'd like you to also try using the push-pull command and typing distances that you would like for it to travel. So if I choose this surface, for example, and I want to push-pull 10 feet, then what I need to do is click on the surface, hover in the direction I wish to travel, which could go the other way too. I'm going to hover up, and I'm going to type a distance of 12 feet, like so. Let's look at this one. Let's have this one be 5 feet, this surface be 10 feet down, this surface be, we'll go up the 5 feet, then we'll go up another 5 feet. I'll take this surface and go up 3 feet. Spend some time creating shapes from old shapes using your line and your arc tool, and then begin to push-pull and see what you can come up with that's custom, and I will do the same. The next thing we'll be doing today is taking a look at some of the edit commands in SketchUp, things like copy and paste, moving, rotating, and some of those basic editing tools. So what we'll do to start out is we will leave those objects to the side and we will go to our 3D warehouse or get models area. You'll need to make sure that you have an internet connection to do this, and we'll download an object to use as an example for some of these editing tools. So let's go ahead and search for a chair. And what we can do is download, how about this one here, right there. It's the 5th one in your list. When you click on the download button, it will say, do you want to load this directly into your SketchUp model? We did this last week, so hopefully this will be fairly straightforward for you. Say yes, and we'll bring the chair in. As you can see, we're going to have to see what size it is and see if it's actually to scale. So before we go too far with these editing commands, I'm going to get you to click on the tape measure and just use that tape measure to do a quick measurement. It seems generally to scale. Okay, the first thing we want to do with this chair is we absolutely are going to leave it as a component. Life is much easier if we leave our objects in that protective box and work with the entire object. So we only have to click on it once and the object is selected. First thing we'll do is copy the chair. Now you will find copy or cut under the edit menu drop down, or we can simply go Control C and then Control V, which works well in SketchUp, and Control V again, and let's do it a 4th time. And there we go. When you do or use the copy and paste command with a component, you'll find that when you double click inside the object and keep double clicking, that what you do to one object, you do to all of them. You'll notice that if I'm far enough in and I want to change that material, several clicks to do that, it changes all of them. So copy and paste is much more beneficial than just having extra objects, but that you can create a table leg, for example, and make it a component, copy and paste it around the table, and then if you decide later you'd like to change the finish, it will change all of those things. So that's Control C, Control V, or copy and paste. One of the things I like to do with copy and paste, though, is to use the paste in place option under Edit. And the copying process is the same, but what's useful about this is it allows me to paste the object directly on top of the original object and then use the move command to very carefully copy that object directly beside, back, or in front. Now watch as I do that here. I'm going to go Control C. Let's just make sure I did that correctly. Control C. And then I will select Paste in Place. Immediately following Paste in Place, we will use the Move command. Choose somewhere on the object, begin to drag to the right or left. Making sure it stays on axis, I can ensure that I type a direct distance there, an exact distance, or I can click a second location. That's really handy when you're trying to do bedside tables and you want to ensure that they are copied and pasted directly opposite onto the other side. So that would be copy and paste. So now that we've actually tried the move command after hitting paste in place, let's actually go through what it is we would need to consider when we're moving an object. So for the steps around the edit commands, the first thing we always want to do is to select the object. So step number 1 is to select the object. After we select the object, we will look for a shortcut for the next command we're going to learn, which is move. It's right there. You'll also find it under the Tools drop-down. So if I use the Move command, it's important to me to ensure that the object that I'm moving will either remain on the floor or remain on the wall or the surface that it needs to remain on, and that I'll be traveling on the axis or in the direction that I need to travel. So bit of advice on move. Either move your object on the color axis, the colored axis that you wish to go. So go green first, and then you could move back red, and then you could go up on the blue axis if you want to make it fly, go in the air, and that would be an absolutely fine way to cause it to move or make it to move, where you're sort of very carefully, going to the right, going back, going to the left till it's in place. That's one valid way. Another way to make an object move is to consider this point, or a point on the object needs to move and attach to a point on this object. So that would be endpoint to endpoint move. So in this case, I'm going to grab the chair, choose the move command. I'm going to find an endpoint on the object before I click the chair. Click on that endpoint on the object, and as I move, I will bring it to something else that it needs to attach to. Maybe that's the floor, and in this case, I will attach it to the endpoint of this chair. Maybe they share an arm here, and I will click again. Now that's really useful when I'm moving an object to a floor surface. Let me show you what that would look like. When I take the chair and I need for this chair to touch this surface, so I know that it's on the floor and not floating in the air. So in that case, I would grab the lower sort of bottom section of the floor, click it, and hover over the surface it's going to go to. Just wait till it says on face and click again. That way I know that it's in place and it's not floating. The worst thing that you can do when you're moving an object is to just go from what seems correct. So if I was to simply move this chair and I want to move it back there beside this other chair, and I think that looks right, but I'm not concentrating on the color of the axis or anything like that, then I cannot be guaranteed where that's going. So if that looks right, see, it worked out at that time. Oftentimes that's when you'll find things floating in the air and so forth. So we have to be careful that we use red, green, blue, and that we use endpoints and sort of trigger points on what we know about the object before we move it to a face or an area that we know that it needs to go. The final way to move an object would be to type a precise distance that you would like it to move. Let's grab this chair right here. We'll select the move command. In this case, I would select the object, hover my mouse in the direction I wish for it to go, and type a precise distance in the air, 5 feet, enter, to know that my object has moved exactly 5 feet. The next command that we'll be trying is the rotate command, which is super necessary to be able to have objects face in the direction we wish for them to face. Now, like all of the other tools or edit commands, we do have to select the object first prior to selecting rotate. Now, rotate is to the right of the move button, and it looks exactly like what it promises. And so there are several things we can do with rotate that we'll learn more about when we get to be more advanced at rotate. But today we'll just do the basics. So you'll find rotate also under the tools dropdown. Let's go ahead and select that. Now the minute we do, you'll notice this sort of protractor appear, which will be colored. If it's on a surface that is on the floor, it will be blue. If it's on a vertical surface in the sort of red on the red axis, it will be red, and if it's on a vertical surface on the green axis, it will be green. So if you can imagine it this way, while it's on the floor, it would be rotating with that being the pivot location. So that's kind of a normal rotate for furniture. If you find a green protractor on the wall, it would be like cartwheeling the object, and if it's a red protractor, it would be like somersaulting the object. So really have to find the proper color to do rotate. Now if it's a black protractor, then you're not quite sure which axis it's on or which plane it's on, so be careful about that. We're going to be using just the blue one right now, and so what we'll do is we'll get close to an object, we'll hit rotate. Now ideally you would be right in the middle of the object. That would cause it to rotate with a pivot exactly where you'd want it to be in the middle. Sometimes I can be a little bit loose about this. Let's just find a location that's close to the object underneath and that we're dealing with a blue color protractor. And click. Next, what we want to do is it's basically saying which side is the side that needs to be rotated here, or what side will go to the next side. And I don't know how else to say that. I'll say that when we get into more complicated rotate commands, but there is a second click involved here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to click on where it says red. There is my second click. And as soon as I do, the object will begin to change. So it measures it from that point and gives you the degrees that you'll need. You'll notice when I rotate this object in this direction, it kind of snaps into place at 90 degrees, 180, 270, and so forth. I can type a random angle if I want, or I can just click. I could click in some odd angle like 47.6 as I have here, Or let's try one where we actually turn the chair in that direction and type 45, enter. Now the object has been rotated at 45 degrees, and we know exactly how many degrees it is, and the typed method is very, very useful in that way. Now the last command that we'll be looking at today is the scale command, and it also does exactly what it promises by rescaling our object. Now you will find it located to the right of rotate. So we're just kind of moving to the right here slowly. We've basically been working through move, rotate, scale, and we did a little tape measure. So we're getting quite a knowledge base here. So again, just a reminder that the first step is really to ensure that you have clicked on the object so SketchUp knows which object it is that you would like to modify. Then I'd like you to click on the scale command, and what will happen to your object is just you'll get a variety of grips that you're going to have to analyze and work with in order to scale the object. So the uniform scale location is in the corners of the object. Now what uniform scale is it takes the whole object and makes the object larger or smaller and keeps the relative scale. So the chair would stay in the same proportion, but it would get to be bigger or smaller. Now the percentage or the scale that this object is to begin is 100% of itself. That's a scale factor of 1. Okay, so right now this object is a 1. If I was to make it larger, I wanted it to be double that size, then I would choose a corner grip, select and hover, and for the scale factor that appears for you in the bottom right hand side, I would type 2, enter. The entire object would be twice as wide, twice as tall, twice as deep, because I typed a scale factor of 2. Let me type Control Z to undo that now and try this again, or think about this again. If I wanted the object to be smaller, one of the biggest maybe misunderstanding is that that becomes a negative. Well, it doesn't. Instead, it becomes a decimal or a fraction. So if I wanted this object to be half the size of its original 100%, then I would choose a corner grip, begin to hover in the down direction, and for a scale factor, I would type 0.5, enter. So in other words, anything from 0 to 100% would reduce the size of the object because it would be a fraction of its original size. Anything over 1 would increase the size of the object at a percentage that's larger than the original. 1.5 would be 150%. 3 would be 3 times the size of its original size, and so forth. So that's how I would edit the scale uniformly to make an object be smaller or larger. What if, though, I only wanted to make the object wider? Well, we could still use the scale command to do this, but this time we would look for the very middle grip button, which sits on the side, as you can see here or here. And to edit just the depth of the object, I would choose the middle grip button here or here. If I only needed to edit the height of the object, I would look for that one middle grip, top and bottom. Let's try the side grip to widen our chair. And we will use the same principle to say, I would like to make it twice as wide, and so my scale factor in this case will be 2, enter. All of the other dimensions have stayed the same, but I've been able to take an original object and turn it into kind of a love seat by simply widening the object. Let's undo that. Let's make it twice as deep. We can almost turn something into a bed, in other words. Oops. Middle grip. 2, enter. Now I have a chaise, and it looks like an outdoor chaise lounge. So you can see that that's a very useful grip as well. Very, very helpful to edit your object and even create new objects from that object. Now something that I don't use too often when it comes to the scale grips would be the bottom, top, and side middle grips, which will edit 2 of the dimensions but not the third. So one of the dimensions of the object stays the same while 2 things change. You can watch me try this. I choose that top middle grip. I'm changing the height and the width while the depth remains uniform. In this case, I'm changing the depth and the width while the height remains uniform. And so I find that a little tough to work with. I tend to just do one thing at a time there. But you can see that in this case, the 2 dimensions that you're changing, or the scale factors, are separated by a comma. So I could go 2, 2. Twice as wide, twice as deep, same height as it was originally. One of the coolest things about scale, in my opinion, super satisfying for some reason, is to use the scale command to mirror an object. In this case, what we would do, depending on which way we would like to mirror the object, is we find the grip that best applies. For example, if this chair was a right-armed chair and didn't have an arm over on the left side, but I needed to switch that and mirror that chair so it had an arm the other way, this is something we do quite often with sectionals. For example, I would find the side middle grip, I would click and I would begin to hover. I would reduce the width of the chair and I would continue to hover till it came through all the way on the other side. Now you'll notice my scale factor changing, and this time it is a negative. So the scale factor for a mirrored object is -1 if you want the object to remain the same. You'll be finding that very, very useful in little exercises to come. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.